You're not here by accident. Something within you, quiet but insistent, brought you to this video at just the right time. And by the time you finish watching, you'll begin to understand why true healing doesn't often come as a sudden flash of clarity. More commonly, it arrives like a faint whisper in the middle of noise. A subtle shift that begins not because your surroundings change, but because something within you starts to realign. Healing starts when you stop disowning the parts of your past you once wished to forget. It begins when you start to embrace all you've been through, what you've experienced, denied, or tried to silence. Carl Jung once said, "We don't transform by bringing light to our shadows, but by becoming conscious of the darkness." It's through that quiet, often unseen process that deep integration begins to take root. Even if you're not fully aware of it yet, there are quiet but powerful signs that healing is already underway from within. One of the first is a noticeable drop in the internal conflict, not because you're trying to force peace, but because a quiet gentleness begins to take hold. You start observing yourself without constant criticism. You allow emotions to arise without demanding that you fix or improve yourself right away. You begin to live more peacefully with who you are. Your inner voice changes. You stop blaming yourself for feeling. You no longer demand perfection just to justify rest. Instead, you start speaking to yourself with honesty and with kindness. And that kindness isn't weakness. It's a gentle strength that begins to soften the barriers between you and your authentic self. This softness doesn't arrive all at once. It settles in slowly through the small decisions you make in your own favor. Each time you choose not to criticize yourself for lacking answers, for not healing quickly, or for responding imperfectly, it grows. You begin to realize that true strength doesn't mean being untouched by pain. It means feeling deeply and continuing to move forward, even when the pain is still fresh. The internal war that once felt never-ending begins to calm. Not because everything is solved, but because you're no longer at odds with who you are. You realize you can feel anger and still stay grounded. You can feel fear and still take action. You can fail and still be worthy. This kind of acceptance isn't giving up, it's gaining clarity. It's the recognition that every emotion, every scar, every part of you once tried to hide is part of your personal story. And when you allow those parts to exist without resistance, something meaningful occurs. A quiet merging of your past, your present, and your potential future. The unrealistic standards you once imposed on yourself begin to fade. Harsh self-judgment softens. In its place, a steadier presence emerges, one that feels more grounded, more real. You're no longer striving to become someone new. You're learning to fully occupy your current self. And that in itself is a powerful form of healing. This kind of healing doesn't need grand gestures or rituals to be valid. It shows up in the everyday, in the moments when, in the past, you might have given up on yourself, but now choose to remain. Not to immediately fix everything, but to stay with yourself, with patience and self-respect. You start to notice that pain, while still present, feels different. It no longer overtakes you. It doesn't stop your progress. It walks beside you. That shift happens because you've stopped pushing pain away. You understand now that pain isn't your enemy. It's a part of your story that needed to be heard. Your body feels this transformation too. The chronic tension you once carried unconsciously begins to loosen. Your breath deepens naturally. Sleep becomes more restorative. Not because life has become effortless, but because you're holding your burdens from a more unified place. A place where you don't have to abandon yourself just to get through. Emotions that once felt threatening no longer carry the same weight. They've become valid reflections of who you are, experiences you now acknowledge without needing to fix. You can be sad without feeling broken. You can feel insecure without questioning your value. You can have a hard day without thinking you've undone all your progress. That's one of the most telling signs of deep healing, the ability to hold both your light and your darkness without rejecting either. You no longer fracture yourself to be accepted. You no longer mask your truth to fit in. Instead, you walk with all parts of yourself, your contradictions, your voids, your quiet growth, and that kind of wholeness, even with its imperfections, is far more honest than any illusion of perfection you once upheld. Another sign is a shift in how you view the past. It's not about forgetting or covering up pain with fake optimism. It's about being able to look at your history without the same ache. It no longer pulls you under. You don't collapse when old memories resurface. When healing through integration, past struggles stop being constant threats. They become chapters you've processed, acknowledged but no longer defining your present. They're not erased or romanticized, they're simply accepted as part of your story. You begin to recall them, not to relive the pain, but with a new resilience that no longer lets those memories control you. Your past still matters. It still shaped you, but it no longer confines you. You're no longer stuck in the identity of someone broken or fearful. You've outgrown the survival mode that once built walls around you. Now you walk alongside all the versions of yourself, the silent, the protective, the loud, the wounded, and you choose to bring them together with compassion. You've made peace with your contradictions. You've chosen integration over fragmentation. You've seen your depths and instead of turning away, decided to embrace them and grow. Your past is no longer a punishment. It becomes sacred ground, a place where you discovered your own resilience, where nothing else could hold you. It becomes the soil where your strength took root, the parts of your life you once ignored, the choices you didn't want to face, the moments you hoped to forget. You now meet with understanding. You no longer feel shame for who you were when you didn't yet have the tools or the awareness you now possess. You come to see that all your former selves, the hesitant, the angry, the scared, the ones who stumbled, were never wrong. They were all trying to protect you. They were survival in motion. And now, from where you stand, you can finally offer those past versions of yourself the kindness they needed. That compassion doesn't make you fragile. It sets you free. Because only someone who has made peace with their past can step into their future with a sense of lightness, unburdened and whole. You no longer carry your history as weight. You carry it as woven threads of who you've become, not denying what happened, but recognizing that through it all, your soul remembered what it needed to. And that understanding? It changes everything. It changes how you tell your story. You no longer speak from a wound that feels fresh. You speak from a scar, soft, healed and full of memory, but no longer painful. Your story stops being a tragedy and becomes a journey. You no longer define yourself by what happened to you or what you lost. Instead, you define yourself by how you chose to rise, adapt, and grow beyond the limits that pain once imposed. This transformation isn't loud. You don't announce it or explain it, but it's unmistakable. People notice the difference, even if they can't name it. You carry something calmer, more grounded, not because you're pretending to be healed, but because you've begun to truly understand your own transformation. You speak now not from open wounds, but from healed parts that carry insight. You come to see that forgiveness isn't always about others. Sometimes it's about forgiving yourself for the times you didn't protect your heart, when you stayed silent even though something inside you was speaking loudly, for moments when you abandoned your truth to hold on to someone or something out of fear. And now, instead of blaming yourself, you offer compassion. You recognize you did the best you could with the awareness you had. This self-forgiveness softens harsh judgments. It opens space for a different kind of gratitude, not the kind that romanticizes the past, but one that honors what it taught you. You begin to realize that even in your darkest moments, something important was taking root, a quiet awakening. That sense of gratitude doesn't make you naive. It deepens you. You stop carrying the past like a weight. Instead, it becomes part of your foundation, grounding you, reminding you of where you come from, but never limiting your growth. Your story stops being a barrier. It becomes a path for connection. You're no longer seeking to be seen or validated. You're simply expressing your truth, and that honesty creates connection where once there were walls. Your past no longer stands between you and the world. You no longer hide your experience to feel safe. You've stopped identifying only with the pain. When you speak now, it's from a place of growth, not from trauma. And that doesn't make you distant. It makes you approachable, real, and steady. People sense when someone has faced darkness and chosen to live beyond it. Your presence shifts. It's quieter, yet more grounded. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you now carry your story with respect rather than resistance. You no longer emit confusion or denial. You embody integration, and integration doesn't have to shout. It simply exists, calm and firm. You also find that when you revisit the past, it's not to assign blame or justify what happened. You return with intention, to learn, to finish what was left open, to see the patterns clearly, not as punishment but as a path to freedom. When nostalgia comes, it doesn't overwhelm you. You don't get lost in it. You sit with it, acknowledge it, and gently return it to its place. What once felt like a need has become something that's been seen and accepted. And in that moment, something inside becomes lighter. You realize that you don't need to reject the past to move forward. Integration doesn't mean forgetting. It's a more compassionate way to evolve. You stop pushing away the things that hurt you and instead welcome them as part of your experience. You understand that everything your soul endured helped bring you to this point, with this clarity, this peace, this deeper awareness. Another clear sign that you're healing through deep integration is that you begin to act from your core rather than react out of habit or emotion. It's a quiet shift, easy to miss from the outside, but significant within. This isn't about shutting down or becoming indifferent. It's about finding a steady inner space from which your actions naturally flow. When your inner world feels whole, you stop needing to defend yourself at every turn, to explain every emotion, or prove your worth through impulsive reactions. Your energy stabilizes. Your words are more measured, your choices more aligned. You start acting from a cohesive place, one that doesn't collapse under pressure. You don't react, you respond. And those responses come from clarity, not fear, from presence, not urgency. This is what integration looks like. What once overwhelmed you now meets a different version of you, one who can observe without being swept away, who can feel without losing ground. You don't stop feeling. You just stop running from those feelings. You stop equating defensiveness with strength. Your power isn't something you push, it's something you carry quietly and confidently. You stay grounded not by controlling everything, but by staying connected to yourself. And this grounded presence isn't fake or forced. It's not learned from others. It grows from within, by facing your inner challenges, by listening to the parts of yourself that once resisted growth, and by embracing them. When you make peace with your own contradictions, your behavior naturally changes. You act with calm, not out of fear. You show awareness, not the need to control. And this shift affects everything around you. You no longer chase being right. Peace matters more than being correct. You don't seek conflict to defend your pride, because you no longer feel the need to defend what already feels whole. When all parts of you have been accepted, outside conflict loses its grip. You become quieter, but your presence becomes more impactful. You no longer push or retreat. You hold space, you support, and you create change from a place of real inner alignment. This coherence isn't an idea or performance. It doesn't come from pretending you have it all figured out. It comes from living whole, not separating your thoughts from your actions or your feelings from what you show. Your experience of life changes, not because it becomes easy, but because you stop seeing it through the lens of old wounds. You begin to live fully, even when things are uncomfortable, without being thrown into chaos. Your energy doesn't shake with every challenge because you've stopped seeing the world as a threat. You no longer give others the power to unbalance you. Your inner core becomes a safe place, not a battlefield. And that doesn't mean you've stopped feeling. It means you now have a choice in how you move with your feelings. You can cry and still be at peace. You can feel fear and still move forward. Your emotions are no longer signals that something is wrong. They're companions that help you navigate life. You begin to understand that you don't have to respond to everything, not because you're indifferent, but because you now know how valuable your energy really is. You stop spending your energy on conflict that leads nowhere, on conversations that feel empty, or on relationships driven only by reactivity. Integration naturally brings discernment, not out of judgment, but rooted in self-respect. As you grow more at ease within your inner space, you learn how to protect it without shutting it off. You set boundaries without guilt. You speak honestly without losing your calm. This reshapes your presence. You become someone who can be there for others without absorbing their emotions. Someone who can truly listen, share your energy, and still stay grounded, never overstepping. And that kind of presence can't be faked. It comes from making peace with every part of yourself, when there's no longer tension between your mind and heart, your body and spirit. You no longer feel the need to hide your healing process. You embrace your own pace. You welcome your silences and respect your pauses. You stop defining yourself by how much you produce or how strong you appear. Instead, you define yourself by your integrity, by how you hold space for yourself with compassion rather than perfectionism. You remain authentic even when no one is watching. As this path unfolds, a new inner order emerges. Your emotions stop competing. Your decisions become more grounded. The mental noise quiets, not because it vanishes, but because you've learned to tell apart your true voice from fear or disconnection. Even your mistakes take on new meaning. You stop punishing yourself with every misstep. You stop demanding a reset every time things go wrong. You realize that every experience, uncertain or steady, is part of your journey, part of your integration. Through that clarity, you stop fracturing every time life challenges you. Your strength becomes quiet and steady, not something you need to prove, but something you embody. In a world that often favors appearance, this depth becomes a quiet form of resistance. From this centeredness, you no longer lose yourself so easily. Even amid chaos, you know how to return to your core, because every part of you has been welcomed back. And in that reunion, your soul finds the stability it's been seeking. Another clear sign of transformation is how your relationships begin to mirror the harmony you've developed within. You no longer seek connection out of emptiness, but from awareness. What you once chased, love, validation, a sense of wholeness, you now find within. And from that quiet completeness, you choose more consciously. You no longer form attachments to patch old wounds. You build relationships from the fullness inside. You stop recreating the same emotional cycles in new relationships. Why? Because you're no longer unconsciously looking for someone to play out the parts of yourself you once rejected. Now you can see your projections clearly, without shame. You don't deny them. You integrate them. You meet them with honesty, not blame. And from that honesty, you find freedom. You're no longer satisfied with superficial connection, not because you're self-righteous, but because your soul won't settle for anything that feels inauthentic. You value depth, presence, and honesty, even if it's uncomfortable, because you understand now that discomfort can be meaningful when it's part of something real. Even the way you communicate evolves. You speak less to be heard and more with intention. You don't have to say everything, but what you do share comes from your grounded truth. That truth doesn't attack, it simply stands. You allow yourself to set boundaries gently. You give yourself permission to walk away without resentment. Because you no longer hold on to people or places that require you to abandon who you are, your inner alignment starts showing up in your external life. And when something doesn't feel mutual or honest, it fades on its own. There's no need to force it. Your energy no longer fuels what's out of alignment. This transformation shows in quiet ways, in how you listen without trying to rescue, how you support others without carrying their pain as your own. You choose to remain only where truth is present, and when it isn't, you walk away gently without guilt. You're no longer in relationships to fix the past. You connect to grow, to evolve together, not to mask wounds with momentary affection. And that shift redefines the quality of your connections. Your soul no longer clings to scraps or shallow ties. You feel peace within, even when alone. What once felt like emptiness becomes space you welcome. You're no longer running. You've arrived in yourself. And from this place, any new connection must meet you in the same authenticity. You're no longer controlled by the fear of loss, because you've learned that what's truly meant for you cannot be taken away. When someone leaves and you remain true to yourself, they're not abandoning you, they're revealing who they are. You no longer make silent agreements just to feel loved. You don't shrink your truth to fit in. You don't quiet your voice to make others comfortable. And from that inner strength, your relationships gain clarity, depth, and honesty. Because when you no longer leave yourself behind, you also don't allow others to leave you behind either. That quiet dignity elevates every bond you hold. It's no longer about clinging, it's about sharing. No longer about needing, it's about resonating. And when your relationships emerge from resonance, not dependency, they reflect your healing. You're no longer caught in cycles that fed your emptiness. You connect with others who are also dedicated to truth. There's no drama, only presence, no power games, only respect, no pressure to be someone else, just the freedom to be yourself. You realize love, when rooted in integration, doesn't seek control or safety. It seeks mutual freedom. It no longer hurts, not because there are no challenges, but because you no longer tie your worth to another's approval. You don't wait for someone to complete you. You're not looking to be rescued. You offer what's already whole. Even in farewells, your energy is different. You no longer beg for permanence in places where growth has stalled. You don't force yourself to remain in old patterns disguised as love. You leave without resentment. You stay without fear, because your inner peace means more than any forced closeness. You understand now that every relationship reflects the one you have with yourself. And from this space of integration, your way of supporting others shifts too. You no longer give advice out of urgency. You hold space without trying to fix. You respect that everyone has their own process, their own rhythm, their own time to awaken. You know that no one can do the work for another. True healing must rise from within, and you become more compassionate because of it, but also more grounded, more open-hearted, yet more truthful. This kind of energy, when in balance, becomes one of the clearest indicators of deep healing. Not just surface-level progress, but soul-deep integration of all the once scattered parts of you, and then something remarkable begins to take shape. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed. It's not a sudden rush of joy, not the kind of excitement that comes from outside success or fresh starts. It's subtler than that, more lasting. You begin to feel a calm that arises for no obvious reason. A peace not tied to a perfect environment or every part of life falling into place. It emerges, naturally, like a slower breath or a silence that comforts you, wrapping you like a soft, invisible layer of warmth. You're not euphoric. You're not chasing stimulation or distraction. You're simply here, fully present, And that presence, once something that felt distant, reserved for monks or spiritual masters, now begins to feel familiar. It feels like it was always within. You quietly waiting. This peace doesn't mean you no longer feel pain. You still do, perhaps even more deeply, but now you know how to hold it. You don't flee from emotions, suppress them, or hide them away. You also don't cling to them. You observe them. You stay with them gently, like a kind companion. And when their message has been received, you release them with care. This shift brings clarity. You start to recognize what's urgent versus what's truly meaningful. You're less reactive. You no longer feel the need to prove your growth. You simply embody it. Your soul stops running. And when it does, the mind calms, the body relaxes, and your energy becomes lighter, more fluid. Even as life continues to ebb and flow, you stop resisting discomfort. You stop fighting what is. Instead, you choose presence. You remain steady, even when things around you shift. And gradually others notice, not because you announce your healing or seek acknowledgement, but because your energy speaks for itself. The way you talk, the way you meet someone's eyes, the way you carry yourself, it all shifts. You no longer explain your journey. You no longer ask for approval. Your presence says enough, and what comes from a peaceful place doesn't need justification. It simply exists. Then comes a deeper insight. Peace isn't the finish line. It's a new way of walking. You no longer need the world to arrange itself perfectly for you to feel okay. Your steadiness now comes from within. It's not delicate because it's not based on external stability. It doesn't vanish with change because it's not a passing feeling. It's a state of wholeness. You're no longer chasing fulfillment like it's somewhere out there. You realize now what you've longed for has always lived within you, hidden beneath layers of self-doubt, guilt, and disconnection. But now that you've begun the process of true integration, that inner richness rises on its own, like a river freed after being blocked for years. You understand now that calm doesn't come from control. Real peace isn't having all the answers, it's trusting yourself. And trusting yourself doesn't mean certainty. It means being at ease in your own presence, even amid uncertainty. It means changing paths without feeling lost, pausing without labeling yourself a failure, not knowing and still feeling whole. From this calm, the world's noise fades. External judgments no longer define your value. The pressure that once weighed heavily on you starts to dissolve, not because you've shut life out, but because you no longer bend yourself to fit in. You no longer seek to earn your place. You belong to yourself now. That inner belonging becomes your foundation. Every action flows from clearer intention. Each silence feels sacred, not empty. Every connection becomes intentional, not driven by need, but by choice. This steady inner peace is a powerful sign that healing is happening, authentically, deeply. Not by forcing anything, but by bringing all parts of yourself back into harmony. If something within you felt aligned while hearing this, it's because you're already in this process. Healing through integration doesn't mean forgetting your past. It means embracing all versions of yourself with awareness, even the hurt ones. You are not broken. You are gathering your pieces, and in doing so, the peace you once searched for in the world begins to awaken inside you, quiet, deep, and real. If this message touched something in you, if you felt understood or just more at ease, it's because your journey matters. And your presence, just as it is a gift this world needs. So if this resonated, don't let the feeling pass unnoticed. This is just the beginning, and you don't have to go through it alone. There is a community of people just like you, waking, uphealing, remembering who they truly are. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of insight, light, or connection. Let this space remind you, you are not alone. Your healing matters. Your process is sacred, and if these words stirred something in your heart, share them. Someone else may need them today. A few honest words can change a life. Together we grow, together we rise, and together we return. Home to ourselves. Thank you for being here. Your presence is powerful, and the world is better because you're in it.